Those who do not have Linux have Windows. And if you do not defenestrate yourself through that window at the right moment when everyone's standing in the street watching, that moment goes by and never comes back. Most of the time. I'm talking about tournament windows. I'm talking about career windows. I'm talking about the windows of time that you have to succeed. Getting older is losing that idealistic feeling that you can do anything, anytime, and being more realistic. Some say it's the world turning gray and you feel the opportunities are starting to pass by and you're no longer able to do. I'm the perfect example. Look at me playing golf at 35, thinking I can get on the PGA Tour. I literally brought my club down to the gym so I could practice my swing plane in the mirror. But I know my window. I never even had a window in golf, right? To get on the PGA Tour, Tiger Woods won his first tournament when he was 3 years old. This is going to be a big hobby for me. It's going to be something I love, and it's something I still will appreciate, but it's not something that I can capitalize in the same way if I was a, rich 10-year-old that lived in Florida with an affluent family and more chances to go down that route. And just like we have with some of our hobbies at different points of time, Counter-Strike players experience this constantly. Sometimes it's guessing whether or not they're in their window. Earlier this year, we saw that m0NESY's were competing at the same time as Vitality, one of the only teams to meet them in grand finals in those first 6 months. The most dominant 6 months any team has ever put together in history. Made possible by teams being extremely good and playing extremely close, but not beating them, a la m0NESY's. In history, do you think that we would have won this major again? Probably not. This shirt would not exist if karrigan didn't miss a massive opportunity in his window to set up FaZe for the future. It could be possible that karrigan and niko continued to play together if this didn't happen. Now you could say this is our window, or you could say that was a window missed by FaZe. But either way, we see that the window doesn't come back. FaZe are no longer the same team. Yes, fast forward to 2022 and karrigan finally takes a chip. But that's 1 out of 4 grand finals. This is something that affects who's the best IGL of all time for me. You go over to Simple, and that's somebody who is one of the exceptions. And in many ways, sports and esports, the reason that it gets us going so much is the exceptions, right? It's the underdog stories. It's overcoming the impossible. And for Simple, when he was playing 2016, 2017, extremely talented, hothead, never had a good enough team to actually win trophies, then had his best year of all time at the same time that Astralis were having their best year of all time, which made it impossible for him to win more. Still got #1 player against all odds. This is a special thing. This is kind of like what happened to m0NESY's, except m0NESY's didn't have the #1 player in the world. They just lost. And now it might be fade to black for them until their next roster move. Who knows? That might be their tournament window. You could look at a team like that and say, well, they'll be back, but that's not true most of the time, is it? Whenever there's a player who turns 30 and plays well, HLTV will make an article about them. You have Roy, the retired blackjack dealer who played for Copenhagen Flames and made that huge run under Hooksy alongside Yabby and really showed that you could be a star player. That's old. You have Glowing in his 30s running through a major RMR to get his team on 9 pandas that you would have never heard about with a massive character. Supernova performance happens, not that often, but it gets attention. Why? Because he's outside of his window, at least our perceived window for him. And I think it is important, actually, to respect the fact that you have a window, really grind to achieve in those moments. And as your life progresses and as your career progresses, start thinking about what's different now. And the reason I wanted to make this video is, specifically because of m0NESY. And, I want to know if a window is being missed right now for m0NESY. I want to know if window that's been maybe missed for niko is going to affect m0NESY as they've now tethered their careers together. Falcons, they're actually not doing that badly. I mean, a lot of people hate Falcons for many, many reasons. Shoving too many star players together, the Saudi angle, the amount of money involved, whatever it is. I personally don't hold the money against them. If they make a good team, as long as they can play above expectation, which is very hard to do, I think they'll always be very impressive to watch to some degree. I mean, look how stacked Vitality were. They still played above expectation. For Falcons, that might also be making an era happen. If you've got kioske, niko, m0NESY maybe in his window, you've got a little left of niko niko's prime, maybe that's the demand. And if you're just under that, it's still impressive, but not that impressive. If it's over, you know, you'll win some fans back. But with that, you have a situation where Falcons are they're winning most of their games. Kioske is not a problem, and in fact is a carry. But I think we've seen throughout a lot of niko's career, his long and winning career, that some of the biggest moments, especially when it comes to majors, have resulted in chokes, whether it was back at Boston. And you know what? I'm not even going to say that was niko who choked, right? For me, that's karrigan collapsing. That's other parts of the team. But I think the choking can be contagious. And when you play too many tournaments and have too many big results, that experience turns into scar tissue, and it just becomes more and more visible. And I think that it becomes something hard that you have to overcome again, right? I talk about this all the time. I think you started to see it bleed over to m0NESY in some spots. You saw it at the Paris Major. That was the first time, I think, on Vertigo versus Fnatic, m0NESY. One of the players also disappearing in an important exit game to qualify to playoffs. Like, when it matters the most, it's not m0NESY. You'd expect that to happen to. And I don't think he's hitched his trailer to a bad ride, right? I think niko has been credited by him to have taught him so much about the game, if not, you know, most of what he's learned, and also helped him achieve a lot. And together they did things like win Dallas, which were still one of the biggest miracle runs in the history of the game between two players, man. I'm just going to say it straight up. They had help. Hunter was helping, but between two players, I don't think we maybe have ever seen a carry to that degree. But now the chokes are starting to come more into play. They lose to Aurora, EWC, they lose to Fury at Fissure Playground. They decide to skip Blast so they could play sort of less but more quality events and put more effort into it, and it's there. But if they're going to lose these types of games at very important moments in tournaments, either in the playoffs or they get, you know, 2-0 slap. They lose Cologne to Furia with Kioske's amazing rookie performance, debut performance, rookie of the year type of level. The things that we've seen from m0NESY, obviously, it's getting less exciting every single time with how amazing some of these new crop of players have been. They still collapse, and it's not that Furia aren't an incredible team, but it is sort of a trend that you can't ignore at some point, right? Sometimes it's good teams, sometimes it's decent teams, sometimes there's excuses, sometimes a few bad rounds, but when you put them all together, they're all losses. The red thread is losing. And as Falcons get more and more stacked, you have to wonder, is there a mental problem on the team that's essentially going to poison the well? You know, I think it's pretty clear at this point that m0NESY is having very little impact as a coach for the amount of different iterations of this lineup that he's had, the amount of talent they've shown within rounds and even within games, and yet the same outcomes at the end of the day. Even though they've got slightly more wins, it's because they've got way more talent. So there's never been a point where Falcons have exceeded their expectation when it comes to their talent, to their actual results. I think we all have seen that. And I gotta tell you, man, the only reason that I'm even talking about this is because the only thing that makes me angry these days is watching great players miss their windows. Watching m0NESY potentially miss their window. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. You know, maybe Budapest will be a nice trend line from here where the results are getting better. They can go through some self-reflection. Maybe their performance coach could actually do something, because it seems like that's actually the most criminal part of all of this for them. They've got this full squad behind them of staff, and yet the results simply aren't there. But if the trend goes in the right direction, the players are there, the team Kicksan knows how to call around these star players, maybe it's Budapest where it all comes together, right? The thing that makes me angry, the thing that I'm worried about is m0NESY for me is, you know, besides I think ZywOo, he's the chosen one that I'm not going to forget just because Donk and Kioske came out. I don't care that those two guys came out and were absolutely incredible and took all the attention away. I'm still thinking about m0NESY. For me, he's a picturesque player. He's more well-rounded than both of them in terms of being able to op as well as he can rifle. Right now, he's even rifling better than he can op in terms of the clutch, in terms of knowing more about the game, in terms of movement. I don't think there's anybody as versatile and has as much X factor as m0NESY. The only other example would be ZywOo. I think m0NESY still got more X factor. I think he's more of a different. I think he can pull off a Dallas, and you know, I don't think anyone else can. So for me, m0NESY in some ways is who I think 10 years from now should be remembered as the best player ever. That's what I think. 2024 showed us how close you could get to #1. But what are you supposed to do when you have a bad performance at Shanghai? Donk is there, wins the entire thing. And it was a debate before that major started whether or not he was #1. But if you miss that window, does it ever come back? Or does it just get smaller and farther away and harder to get through? That's my concern. The emotional maturity we heard about m0NESY when he came onto the team, Nico said he felt like he was talking to someone who was his age. The ability in the game, like he is Counter-Strike to me in many ways. You know how I feel about versatile players. I love a Hunter, I love a Stown, I love a m0NESY, I love a jack of all trades. I love a guy who's good at opening and closing like Niko as well. And I just don't think anybody does it better. But if we end the career where he never gets his #1, he never gets his major because maybe he's hitched his trailer to the wrong wagon, his wagon to the wrong trailer, his skateboard to the wrong pickup. I don't know. If we just have to go through that, because we're not going through it, you know, you're just thinking, well, there's all these other fun stories. One day it's not going to be so fun. One day we're going to talk about him and the missed opportunity and how it didn't work out in the end. If he doesn't capitalize soon, I don't want him to fade into the background. I want him to peak. I want him to take over. I want him to get the trophy cabinet, just like I wanted for Niko, that we know that he should have. And unlike with some other players in history, some of the hotheads, the former Liquid players, Simple, even Niko. We've actually always heard Niko's a great teammate, but in the past, a lot of the egos that we've seen, we know they've been hard to work with. We've never heard that about m0NESY, have we? Never. Just something about that. I'm cheering for him hard. So come on. Let's get through the window. Huh? Let's get the coaching staff, the performance staff in order. Someone needs to be reprimanded. Someone needs to take accountability for a team with this many good players still losing. And the choking is contagious. If it catches Kioske, there is maybe no coming back. Maybe the poor kid will never have a window before he could even see one. Windows are important because, as Sugar Man famously once said, nothing beats reality. Sugar Man.